Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. And I want to thank our guests for spending some time with us to talk about this important issue. We're joined by Derek Rill from the Federal Trade Commission, Office of Congressional Relations. Welcome, Derek. And thank you as well to Brian for joining this webinar. He's the Senior Assistant Attorney General and the lead prosecutor for the New Hampshire Department of Justice Elder Abuse and Financial Exploitation Unit. We really appreciate your time. This is an important topic, and I'm grateful to have some experts with us who can share resources and information and help New Hampshire seniors stay protected from fraud and financial exploitation. So the purpose of this conversation is to get those resources out there, and we'll be recording this and distributing it as a public service announcement for senior centers, community centers, and other locations around the state so that they can have access to on-demand information that will be helpful. We know that despite increased awareness and action from local, state, and federal law enforcement, we've seen over 100,000 Americans in the last year that were victims of scams, and two-thirds of those were senior citizens. According to the FBI, 400 New Hampshire residents, over 60, fell victims of scams in 2023, and that cost them nearly $11 million in the aggregate. And those are just the ones that have been reported. We also know that it's not just older folks that are likely to fall victim to scams, but we know that seniors are deliberately and actively being targeted by scammers. And there are numerous instances where seniors have been targeted. Our office has heard about this. And I know our experts will be able to talk a little bit about some of these trends and experiences and what we should be looking out for. This includes Granite Staters sending tens of thousands of dollars to someone posing as a customer support specialist, telling the victim that her bank account was compromised. That was something we heard about. In another instance, a network of scammers deliberately targeted individuals over 60 by telling them that their computer had been hacked and then posed as a security or government official to gain access remotely to their computer. We've also seen a number of instances where seniors are pressured into buying fraudulent warranty policies from individuals posing to be legitimate brokers. So our office does get calls every week from constituents who believe they may be a target of scams or know someone who's being taken advantage of. That includes hearing from residents about online posts they're seeing, advertising economic impact payments, which is a program that ended years ago. We get reports about YouTube video ads purporting to offer free money to seniors if they click and enter their information. And just this week, a constituent reached out to us because they were receiving up to 25 calls a day from individuals claiming to be from Medicare, but who were not from Medicare, and potentially were trying to take advantage of that individual. So this is a clear and present danger to all Granite Staters, but particularly to seniors. And it's critically important that we provide the resources and support that individuals need to identify these scams, to raise awareness, and to educate communities about where they can turn to get help. So that's why I'm pleased to have this conversation today. I want to turn it over to our experts, and we'll start with Derek first. Derek, thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. And a big thank you for allowing us the opportunity to spread the word. My name is Derek Rill. I'm with the Federal Trade Commission. My job is to get members of Congress to do the kinds of things we're doing here today, because fraud is a problem. The congressman talked about that. And I've got some startling statistics that back him up. Nationwide, people reported losing $10 billion to scams in 2023. That's $1 billion more than in 2022. 1 of 4 people who reported fraud to us also reported losing money. Email, #1 contact for scammers this year, especially, as the congressman talked about, those pretending to be someone that they aren't, like a business, a government agency, a utility. I could go on, and we will talk about a lot of things we've seen, but there are so many different ways that they are approaching us, and we'll talk about some tips, and that's the key. Tip-offs to rip-offs, developing a force field of fraud. That's our goal today. But since fraud is such a big deal and such a problem, the people that take the time to come to a webinar today aren't the ones we are worried about. We really hope that the people online will tell it to those who aren't here online, or let them know, because this will be recorded. You can go to the Congressman's Facebook page and access it. So, hey, if you care, one of the best gifts you could ever give would be a email link to a source that actually is trusted, the congressman, and they can get in on what we're going to talk about today. And it is a problem. In New Hampshire, it's a problem. 13,000 reports from people in New Hampshire who reported losing $27.5 million to fraud. That's $450 per person. Can we afford to let that money go? There's a lot better places to put that money than in a scammer's hands, who's often overseas, and there's nothing we can really do to be able to get the money back once it's in a foreign country that's not cooperating. Top categories: identity theft, imposters, investment scams. So some of the imposter scams that we're seeing, the congressman has mentioned, but if you get a call from your bank, is it really your bank? We've got a problem with your account. Hang up on them and call them back on the number that you see on your bill. Or if it's a credit card, the number on the credit card. One really alarming story that we have is there was an IRS imposter who was pretending to say that your tax form is faulty and we need your personal information. We can fix this. Don't worry about it. We just need your personal information, your social security number, which is gold to scammers, and don't give it up. And the interesting thing about it was that they were actually asking for payments in gift cards. So remember this tip. Here you go. Gift cards are for gifts, not for payments. And the wacky as this sounds, the imposter was saying that he wanted payment in gift cards, iTunes gift cards. So let me see if I got this right. The IRS is asking you for your personal information. They want gift cards. So they've got a disco ball, a dance hall, and all they need are some party jams to get this thing going. Does that sound like the IRS to you? No. So many different types of imposters. They pretend to be from the Federal Trade Commission where I work. And they say that you've won a prize, but we need a fee to collect money from you before we give you the prize. That's illegal. And it's a scam. Then they ask for your personal information because they want to be able to open accounts under your name, take a loan. They can do so much with social security number. Again, that's the big one they're after. But here's your top tip. Here's your everything that we've talked about from an imposter scam so far today would be not happening if you remember this tip. The tip is, if you didn't initiate the contact and they're asking you for money or your personal information, it's a scam. There's your tip off to ripoffs. Some memory tricks that I use to be able to tell people. Remember the tip. If you didn't initiate the contact, they're asking you for money or your personal information, it's a scam. If you didn't initiate, we should investigate. And what we're looking for is people to recognize fraud, not fall for it, report it to the Federal Trade Commission, and then we can actually say that we're not losing $10 billion a year to frauds. We'll lose a lot less money. Payment methods is something I was about to cover. Brian, you're good on this one. Talk about how scammers want us, how they want people to pay. What are they looking for?
Sure. So some of the tips that we offer people to know whether there's a scam being perpetrated against them are these methods of payment. And so a top one that we find these days is cryptocurrency. They will ask for payment in the form of cryptocurrency. For those who don't know essentially what cryptocurrency is, it's an online type of money that allows for sort of free back and forth and easy transfer of funds. Also, wire transfers. They'll ask for payment in wire transfers. Another tip-off is if they ask for payment in gift cards. They'll ask you to go to the store to either send in the mail gift cards or to scratch off the back and read them the gift card number. And then there's old-fashioned cash. That's another tip-off. We've had instances of imposter scams where someone claims to be the government and asks for money and payment in the form of cash. And the most dangerous part about that is what we're seeing in New Hampshire. In several of these instances, they're sending individuals who are part of the scam to the victim's home to pick up that cash.
So there's your tip-off. Did you initiate the contact on any one of these issues? No. So, and then, we talked about payment mechanism. If they will accept only cryptocurrency, only a gift card, only wire money, those three are the reason scammers like it is because the money can be moved around real fast. And again, I talked about how it ends up in a foreign country. There's really nothing we can do if the country's not cooperating to help us do law enforcement. But if you encounter fraud, please let us know, ftc.gov, and let us know what you encountered. Maybe we can do something about it. We manage the nation's database of fraud complaints. And what we do is we package these things. We look for patterns, and we try to figure out how and who. And our law enforcement partners, 3,000 different law enforcement entities have access to it. And so if you report it, that's a good place where people will be looking for it, and we can really do something about this.
And Derek, if I could just chime in briefly on reporting. So certainly if you send anything through the mail, it's important once you realize that it's a scam to contact your local law enforcement as quickly as possible, because our local law enforcement here in New Hampshire works closely with the federal postal inspector. And if you have sent the package within a day or so, or a day or two, it's possible to get that money back. And we've actually, through our office, have secured, and returned money to individuals who have sent cash pursuant to a scam if they've reported it within a day or so.
Absolutely. The sooner you catch it, the quicker. Well, money wiring services can stop that payment if it's within 2-3 days. And if you go to our website, ftc.gov, consumer.gov, and look around, just do a search on reporting fraud. Actually, it's right there on the home page. You can get a link to it, and then it'll tell you steps that you can take to try to recover the money. Best case scenario, if you catch it within a few days, then we can actually stop that payment. When I say we, I mean the money wiring companies. Hey, Brian, what is a safe payment mechanism? Do you still shop online?
Of course I do, and that's not something, in this day and age, that's not something we can avoid, really. But the safest mechanism that I would recommend, that I use, and that we recommend to individuals we speak to, is using a credit card. Using reputable online stores and using a credit card. If you have a credit card that has been lost or stolen, or the credit card number has been used, it's much easier to have those funds restored if you are using a credit card than if you were using a debit card. There's federal law that speaks to this, and so we urge constituents, we urge individuals to use credit cards as opposed to their debit ATM cards.
You're actually protected by law. Thank you, Congress. If you catch an unauthorized charge to your credit card within 60 days of the date on the bill, you are not liable for more than $50. And I've actually never heard of anyone who was charged the $50. Again, there's information on our website for disputing credit card charges, step-by-step advice. We cannot actually handle every complaint that comes to us, every fraud report, but we do have information on how you can take steps to do things to protect yourself, which actually brings up credit reports. We're to make a switch to talk about identity theft here for a little bit. Why is a credit report a factor? What's a credit report do for you, Brian?
So a credit report tells you or provides you information as to whether there have been any checks on your credit, or whether you have taken out any loans, any credit cards, anything that affects your credit goes on your credit statement, your credit report, with one of 3 bureaus, and some of them differ what they have on there. But it's important to check your credit report. By law, you are allowed to get 1 free credit report from each of the 3 bureaus per year, so you could check it every.
Guess what? The credit reports are now available for free every week. Every week?
Okay, that's new to me.
Yes.
That's new information for me. So there's really no reason why you shouldn't be checking your credit reports. So I've investigated and prosecuted many cases of identity fraud by individuals, victims here in New Hampshire. And in each of those cases, we were able to discover the extent of the fraud by getting and looking at your credit report. We were also able to provide tips to victims to stem the tide of that identity fraud, because once you believe that you are a victim, you can actually go to these credit bureaus and freeze your credit, or at least ask them to provide credit alerts on your credit statements.
So what's a credit freeze do?
A credit freeze prohibits any creditor from opening a credit line in your name. So the credit bureaus will not allow any opening of loans, credit cards, any of that while there is a credit freeze associated with your account.
So basically, I can lock my credit report to access. No one can access it, including me. But when I need the loan, I'm going to open my credit report, unfreeze it, so to say, and let the loan go through. They can check my credit report and see that I'm a good credit risk. And off I go with my loan, freeze the credit report again, and checking it every week. I've got 3 different credit reporting agencies. Go to annualcreditreport.com. That's the official site for getting your free credit report, and also for doing a freeze. All this you can find on the FTC's website, and we can tell you how to. If you see something that is not connected to you, as Brian was talking about, you're looking to see, all your records are on there. But if there's something that's not connected to you that just doesn't make any sense, your first stop should be identitytheft.gov. I'm giving you a lot of websites here, but you can find those at ftc.gov, and it's an easy search. Most of the stuff's on the homepage there. And we have the identity theft website, identitytheft.gov, which provides step-by-step what to do based on what you're experiencing. So this is an issue where we can actually resolve something individual, tailored to what's going on with them. If it's a bank loan, if it's somebody tried to get a job under your name, or somebody's committing crimes and using your name. So those are the kinds of things that you'll be wanting to look for when you get your credit report. Freezes are a good idea if you're not doing a lot of financial transactions, but definitely be checking it. And that's as good a way as any that I can think of to avoid fraud. Freeze on your credit report. And the imposter, we talked about a bank calling you. Is it really your bank? Did you initiate the contact? No. So you're going to want to hang up and call the bank back. And for tips, I know we're getting a lot of phone calls. You probably had a few today already of scammers trying to reach you. So when it comes to the phone, if the number's unknown, leave it alone. Let it go to voicemail, and then you can choose whether or not you want to call them back. And most often, they won't leave a message. Also,
and Derek, if I could just chime in briefly. So even if the number is known, we still encourage people to allow it to go to voicemail. We encourage people not to answer their phones, honestly. Important people in your life will leave messages. And the reason I make the distinction about unknown callers versus, or don't make a distinction between unknown and known callers, is scammers are very good nowadays at ghosting numbers. So that means that they can use software that can make it seem as though they are calling from your bank. They can make it seem as though they're calling from your local police department. So even if you believe, even if your phone says that it's a number that you know and trust, it still could be a scam.
Brian, you're not going to believe this, but I once got a phone call from my number.
I've heard that story. I've heard that before from people.
Myself to rip me off.
Yeah, we had an individual in our office who was home on the weekend and received a call from her spouse who was sitting right next to her, not using his phone. So they're very good about it. They investigate you. They find out information about you, and they will ghost numbers to appear legitimate.
So you've got this new technology called AI, and it could actually sound like the congressman's calling you, and he wants you to make sure that you register your vote, but he needs your personal information. That's not the congressman. You didn't initiate it. They're asking you for your personal information. You know the rule. You didn't initiate. We should investigate. Report it to the FTC. We'll make sure that you don't send money, and we appreciate the information. fooling it, maybe we can do some law enforcement on it. So AI allows, here's another imposter scam. Pastors from your church calling you, and they want to raise money for some charity, or they've got this new facility in Sierra Leone, and they need your money to help these people. That money is not going to the people that need the help. So for charities, you may get a phone call, and it may even sound like your pastor. Through AI, they can actually capture his voice and her voice and pretend to be someone they aren't. Again, didn't initiate. We should investigate. Now, charity, and go ahead, Brian.
And we used to say the same, we used to say about grandparent scams. The grandparent scam is where, you get a call, and mostly older adults get individuals from someone claiming to be a loved one, and typically their grandchild. We used to say, well, does it sound like your grandchild? But we can't even do that anymore because of AI. A lot of younger people are using websites like TikTok and Instagram, so their voice is out there to be captured and manipulated by this AI software. So we can't even now say, well, does it sound like them? We say, even if it does sound like them, hang up the phone and call them back at a number you know and trust.
Yes, bingo. And you're initiating the contact. So hang on, I got to get my light back on. So yeah, trusted sources is something that we also tip-offs to rip-offs, tips for avoiding fraud, checking everything out. Get 2 trusted sources. What's a trusted source? Somebody that doesn't have money, and they're not going to be making money on your decisions. For contractors, when weather comes through and people are desperate to get their houses fixed, the scammers flock to that area, and we've had a lot of weather issues this year. How I think New Hampshire has, and Brian, you can help me with this, a certified contractors that have passed the test with the state officials. Is that correct? Is there something like that?
So there's a website that you can go to. You could find the information on our DOJ website, www.nhdoj.gov. What that has is any information about contractors who have been held accountable for any sort of fraud, deception, or any sort of consumer protection violation. So you can check the status of whether your contractor is on there, and essentially what they've done.
Checking it out. Trusted source, the DOJ hotline, going online, the Congressman's office. They have wonderful staff. Congressman, tell me how would we get in touch with your office if we want to check something out, or if want to make sure the FTC is doing its job? How do you get in touch with your office, sir?
Yeah, you can find us online at pappas.house.gov, or visit one of our offices in Manchester or Dover. Our contact information, we'll put it up here on the webinar, but can also be found on our online portal. You can call us by phone. You can email us.
So the Congressman's office is easy to find, and I can vouch for them. They're fantastic. My job is to get members of Congress to do stuff like this, and for the most part, I have to make several calls to encourage them to do something like this. But in the case of Congressman Pappas's office, they came to me. They found me, and so they are very constituent friendly. So give your congressman a call. Brian, can you hear me? Okay.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. So one thing I did want to add is the Consumer Protection Hotline telephone number. So this is for New Hampshire. This is to report any fraud or deceptive conduct by any of those contractors that Derek was warning you about. So it's 1-888-468-4454. That's the number, and it's staffed between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. If you give them a call after hours, they will call you back the following day.
Fantastic. One thing I would encourage from the FTC, we have consumer alerts that we issue based on the fraud of the day, and there pretty much is almost a fraud a day. So that's where you would have read about, you get an email, and you can hear about the pastor scam, scams where they're pretending to be from your church. They're not. um, scams pretending to be the FTC. We've heard them all. You would be ahead of the game, and that's our goal. We need to stay one step ahead of the scammers, and one way we can do that is to get best form of prevention, fraud prevention, is education, and that's FTC's strong point. So stay in touch with us and spread the word. Attachments. Here's something that we haven't talked about. You get an email from, it says FedEx, the banner's real. It looks like FedEx. It's Christmas time, you're expecting presents. All you need to do is click on that attachment and fill out a form and we'll get that package to you. Brian, scam?
Maybe. And that's the point. You don't know. You don't know. And so it very well could be these are called phishing scams because they need for you to engage. So whenever you get something, whether a text message or an email from FedEx, what you believed could be a known and trusted source, if they're asking for you to click a link, if they're asking you to call a telephone number, we urge you not to do it. Instead, what we say is verify, verify, verify. And the way you do that is you go and you find a trusted source, just like Derek was talking about, and you you call FedEx directly and you ask them about a package. You call your bank directly, go to your most recent bank statement, call them directly. Don't provide any information, personal information, any money or anything like that to someone who has engaged with you to something you've received in an unsolicited manner, because it could be one of those phishing attacks. And never click on those links that are provided within these emails and text messages.
Bingo. That's the key right there. If you click on that attachment, you're opening up your computer to scammers who will take your personal information and send an email to every contact on your list, and they'll tell them and you were partying and you're in jail and you need to bribe guards. Of course, you need to wire money or gift cards. So the tip-offs to rip-offs, the payment mechanism. Did you initiate the contact? No. So for any contact that you get, be absolutely sure you're dealing with who they say they are. Are they really who they say they are? That's the key. You've got to find out. And we've provided you a fair amount of tips on those. Don't open
one thing I wanted to go back to on identity theft is, we think about when we give these talks, we think about these scammers who are living overseas and are in these call centers and directing messages to us. But a lot of the reports that we get at the New Hampshire Department of Justice are from individuals who are right here at home, people who live in the Granite State. And so we urge people to be very careful about their surroundings. So it's not just what you put in online. So when we go and talk to people, we urge people, for instance, not to carry around their Social Security card in their wallet or in their purse. My understanding is that, many years ago, this was a common practice for individuals to be told to carry this important information around with them. But I've worked on cases where, an older adult has left a purse in an Uber vehicle, and the person who got in right behind them found the purse, took their Social Security card that was in the purse, and then used it to open up credit cards and loans. So just be very careful. There's no reason to take that type of documentation out. So as careful as you are online, you should be just as careful when you're walking around in your day-to-day life.
So good news, Social Security Administration no longer puts your Social Security number on the card. So that's grandfathered out, and you can go get your card exchanged if you have your Social Security number on it. But don't. I mean, as Brian was saying, don't carry that. That is not a security blanket. If you have a medical condition, you don't need to have that card. They're going to take care of you, and then they're going to figure out how to get the payments after the care is served. Paying money up front for services or goods, bad idea. Yes, Brian?
Yes. I would say, well, I mean, depending on the context, there's some services where you have to pay, a deposit for something. But Again, when it comes to, for instance, contractors, you know, make sure that you're dealing with somebody that's reputable. Always be far more cautious when somebody is asking for money up front. So while there are certain industries and types of, you know, there are certain areas where you have to pay some money up front. When you are doing that, make sure use these websites, use the Better Business Bureau, use our, you know, www.doj.nh.gov and evaluate whether these individuals are trusted persons that you want to be giving that money to.
Yes, absolutely. I like triple V. Verify, verify, verify.
That's right. That's what we say. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's great advice. Leave no doubt. Check everything out. And I should give you the core FTC's website. I'll save you a link if you're dealing with consumer issues. It's consumer.ftc.gov. That's the page where you can go to subscribe to our alerts, scam alerts. That's the site that you can go to. You're one click away from getting free credit reports. That's the site to go to if you want to report a scam. You didn't fall for it. We still need to know. Be a hero. Help end ripoffs. Consumer.ftc.gov is your hub for just about everything that you would know. And we direct you where it's, you know, the state AG's office, the DOJ's office, New Hampshire. We can direct you there if it's something that they can handle, that we might record it, but they can actually do something about it. So we share those reports with more than 3,000 different law enforcement agencies. So be a hero, help end ripoffs, report it to the FTC, and we share those complaints with Brian's agency.
Absolutely. And another point on reporting. So New Hampshire is a mandatory reporting state for all vulnerable adults 18 plus who suffer from abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. And this would be categorized as financial exploitation. And so if you are aware of somebody, you know, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, who has fallen victim to a scam and may have some deficits, may have some cognitive impairment, may have some physical issues, and they just can't see that they're have fallen victim to a scam, report that. You report that to the Bureau of Adult and Aging Services in New Hampshire. That number is 1-800-949-0470. And it's actually a mandatory obligation in New Hampshire. So if you see something, you are obligated to say something.
I did want to, one thing I remembered while you were talking there was we talked about credit freezes. Here's one that you can pass along to people with children. What's happening is scammers get a hold of personal information for people who are, you know, kids, 8 years old, and they pay a bill and they establish good credit, and then they take that credit and absolutely destroy it. And that kid, when he turns to get, you know, his first credit card in college or whatever, she goes and they get to their credit report and it's a disaster. And they've got to clean up years and years and years of abuse to a credit report. And that's not a good way to start your financial life. So here's the tip. Freeze anybody's credit report who doesn't use their credit reports. They shouldn't even have a credit record. So think about that for your kids. Brian, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to what we've said previously about verify, 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 you know, we've talked about going to trusted sources, websites to determine if who you're dealing with is authentic, whether they're a scammer. But what we also recommend is to have a trusted person. You know, a lot of financial institutions offer to have trusted persons or people that are signed on or added to your account. So if there is any, you know, scam that's being perpetrated, they can reach out to that trusted person and determine whether it is in fact a scam or not. And also just to have somebody to run things by. So when you get that call from, you know, someone claiming to be your grandchild, you can hang up and call the trusted person. And that person can hopefully talk things out with you, remind you about these tips. if you get a pop-up on your screen that says your computer's been infected, you can call that trusted person and you can have that conversation. They can remind you to stay calm and to take the steps that you need to take. So in addition to going to those trusted resources, have a trusted person.
Yes, scammers prey on emotions. One scam we haven't talked about real quickly, Brian, you were talking the other day when we met about romance scams, tip-offs to rip-offs. What are you seeing there?
Romance scam is probably the most devastating scam that we find because, it preys on the emotions of love, of loneliness. And so what typically happens in these cases is usually within about a year of a loved one's passing, an individual wants to go on in these dating sites and date again. And scammers are lurking out there. And so usually what happens is there's a connection that's made. These individuals claim that they're overseas, that they're government, that they're military, that they are working on an oil rig. We've heard time and again. And they establish a connection. And these victims fall for these individuals because they're very good at what they do. And then the asks begin. All of a sudden, I had an issue with my passport and I need money to get it rectified. And so these scammers will seek, tens of thousands. We've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars sent by victims in these romance scams. And it is very difficult for others around the victims to convince them that this is a scam because they've fallen in love with them. So especially in those cases, we urge people to report that wherever they can, to the FTC, to the Bureau of Adult and Aging Services, to our office, to use every resource possible to convince these individuals, the victims, that they've fallen victim to a scam.
Absolutely. And Brian, we talked the other day about how there's definitely some common ground to these romance scams. And sometimes members of Congress will come to me, their staff will say, hey, I've got this person, I'm having a hard time convincing them it's not love, it's money. And when we are able to say, there's an oil rig involved, there's military involved, and they're like, wow, this is the exact same pattern I'm getting. And we are able to convince them that this ain't love, it's a scam. And as painful as that is, stop sending money. And with that, Congressman, do you have any questions of us?
I know you talked in great depth about the kinds of scams that we're seeing, and really, we will continue to see the fraudsters adapt and refine their techniques. And so that's why the tips that I think you communicated for folks to just be critical consumers of the information that they're receiving, of the outreach that they're receiving from fraudsters is going to be really important to make sure that they're protected. And I just didn't know if you wanted to sum up in terms of where people should turn, how they can reach out to your agency if they do want to contact and report something.
So for the Federal Trade Commission, consumer.ftc.gov is the hub that will get you to just about everything we've talked about, including how to get in touch with New Hampshire, state officials, and other tips that we talked about today. And some of the alerts that you'll see, we talked about romance scams. How do they strike it up? An email comes with all sorts of misspellings, and there's mistakes, and it just doesn't look right. And they're asking you, or just a pop-up that says, hey, let's get together for coffee. I haven't seen you in a while. I don't know you. And yet it works. So triple V, I love that, Brian. Verify, verify, verify. Leave absolutely no doubt. Check everything out. If you didn't initiate, we should investigate. There's your tips. You should have a force field of fraud. As scary as some of that stuff may be, you're in charge, and you should feel good and strong and powerful. You've got everything you need to be able to ward off these scams. And please, please spread the word. We really need to do something about this and be a hero. Help end ripoffs. Spread the word. Thank you, Congressman, for having us.
No, thank you. And Brian, anything else you want to say about resources from your department?
Absolutely. Thank you. So www.doj.nh.gov is the website. You can find relevant information there for our Elder Abuse and Financial Exploitation Unit. In order to make a report, you can call the consumer hotline at 1-888-468-4454. And we also urge you that if you have fallen victim to a scam, call your local police department. We work very closely with your local police department. They can take immediate action. And like I said previously, if you sent money within the last day or so, 24, 48 hours, there's a chance that they may be able to get it back.
This has been chock full of good information, and just really appreciate, Brian, what you do for folks in New Hampshire, and Derek, what you do on a national basis to help elevate education and awareness, and ensure that consumers out there can, confront these scams. So thanks once again for joining us. We appreciate your time, and I'm going to be saying your URL in my sleep. You said it so many times today. So the repetition is really important to make sure people know the tips, but also where to turn. And we know that both the New Hampshire Department of Justice and FTC are important places where people can seek more information, but also get help. So thanks for doing that work.
Well, thank you too, Congressman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the public and to get this information out. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay. Really the opportunity to spread the word.
Absolutely. Take care, folks. Nice to see you all.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.